Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here with me. I have a few questions um, that we have to ask our educators. So the first one is, what is the best way you have found to engage students in the classroom?
Ooh, there's to pick one. There's lots. um, I would say humor would be my top one. Just kind of that unexpected piece, like our brains give us that boost of dopamine when something's unexpected or exciting or funny. And so having that element always at the ready is pretty helpful for engagement. And then in terms of, so it's kind of the attentional piece in terms of the access piece to make sure that kids can actually engage with the content. That's kind of knowing where they are in terms of reading levels, making sure that there's like multiple avenues to get in. So if they need like grade level text but read aloud so that they can access it, that would be something. Just kind of thinking in terms of universal design. So making sure that there's no like automatic barriers that they have to face, trying to help them either knock down the barriers on their own or having them already kind of pre-knocked down would be the engagement piece in terms of content.
Well, thank you. The next one is, how have you adapted instructional plans to meet the assessed learning needs for all students in your classroom?
It kind of goes back to universal design, really. So when we're teaching English, it's a lot of reading and writing. So we've kind of organized the kids in our brains in terms of like the 3 levels. So well, actually there's 4. So kind of the advanced, so the kids that need a little bit more challenge to stay engaged. And
Mhm.
then the kids who are like right at grade level who need maybe like a careful eye for us to adjust in the moment, but they don't need anything pre-planned. And
Mhm.
then we've got the kids who need the pre-planned support. So maybe we've gone in and either shortened their text or added supports along the margins to kind of help them clarify words, or we've pre-highlighted or things like that. And there's 2 different levels of modification that we do for that. And then the great thing is because we have Google Classroom, we have them all coded so the kids don't know like what significant support means. Like we have a
Mhm.
code for it on our side so that we know what we're giving out, but the kids don't know that they're getting anything different. But we can assign based on student need what
Mhm.
level they get. And then it's fluid. So like if you had a bad reading score, bad relative to your grade level, if you showed up a little bit lower than expected, then but then you did really well with a modified assignment, we might
Mhm.
kind of take you out of that group in our brains and put you in a less supported group so that you can still continue to be challenged. So it's not just based on one score, it's kind of also based on performance and how well you're doing with the support.
Oh, okay, cool. I would love to learn more about that, like how you actually did it on Google Classroom. That's actually really
Oh,
cool.
oh yeah, I'll teach you. It's pretty easy. Well, easy's relative. It takes a lot of, like, backwards work in terms of knowing who to give what to, and then
Yeah.
double and triple checking because inevitably, if you're going through your list and checking off kids in their alphabetical, you're
Mhm.
gonna miss 1 or 2, and then they're gonna be like, "I don't have anything," and then you have to fix
Yeah.
it in the moment. So it takes a while to, like, get your
Group.
real
Yeah.
life pace going, but,
Mhm.
in terms of, like, the Google Classroom side of it, yeah, it's easy, I'll show you.
Oh, cool. Thank you. So the next one is, what is one professional goal you have for yourself to gain professional growth and development?
Oh, good question. I'm like always a work in progress, so I don't know specifically what. Um, I still don't feel like I've mastered teaching kids how to write. It's just such a heady, multi-layered task that, I think my sticking point is teaching the bridge between a graphic organizer and the actual writing.
Mhm.
So for some of our kids, they see them as two very separate things. Like I have to fill out this chart and then I have to do this writing, and they don't see that the chart actually drives their writing. And
Yeah.
so that bridge is tricky. Like I haven't found the verbiage that lands with every kid. And maybe that's because it doesn't exist. Maybe I need to say it lots of different ways. But that is one thing that's kind of in the forefront of my brain right now. Like how do you empower kids to write without giving them the exact words?
Right.
Right, I'm grading essays and a lot of it sounds like me regurgitated, and that's not what I want. I mean, it's nice for them to kind of play with the structure, and I know that we just started, so it's gonna sound very heavily influenced by teachers, but
Mhm.
ultimately I want them to own their own voices. And so I'm kind of in that space in terms of empowering kids with writing skills.
Oh, perfect. Let's see. Oh, what is one tactic you use in your classroom to ensure that there is no harassment among students?
Oh, well, that's no guarantee that I don't harass them, right? No, just kidding. Um, really, we've developed such a safe space for kids that I don't think they would put up with it if they heard it. They've got multiple ways to let us know that they're uncomfortable or they heard something, or um, so they've got a lot of techniques in terms of stopping the harassment if they heard it. I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened, because it has. I mean, the kids have been kind of not social for a year and a half, and now they're back with each other. So they're having some growing pains for sure. So there have been some like nasty names called to each other and stuff. The thing is, we address it right away. We don't let
Mhm.
it continue because, it's inconvenient to the lesson. I think the baseline is providing a safe space for kids. And so that's what we're committed to. Even if that just means like walking by to the person doing the harassing and saying, like, hey, step outside, I need to talk with you. And that ends it. At least it gives some space and then we can address it. But we've also done a lot of like the backwards skills to avoid harassing. So, what does collaboration look like? How do you disagree with someone but not attack the person personally? So, we've got like anchor charts in the classroom about what that could sound like. And so, I know in the moment kids aren't going to be like, I need to check my chart before I respond to you. You know what I mean? But it's just something that's available to them when their eyes are kind of wandering the walls. And you know we refer them to it when we do the debrief with them, so that they've
Mhm.
got some skills to not be mean to each other too.
Yeah. Um, what is the best skill you have learned to create and maintain effective environments for student learning?
The best what?
Um, the best skill you have learned to create and maintain effective environments for student learning.
Hmm. It's funny because it kind of changes over the year as we like encounter things together. I would say, um gosh, that's tricky because there's so many parts of it. Considering the executive function for kids and developmentally where they are is a huge skill that I think really helps. Hi, Kitty.
You see
Um,
him?
yeah,
Oh my
my
god.
baby, he got so big.
Yeah.
Oh, sweetie pie. Um,
Ollie Wolly.
I miss that so much. I miss Abby interrupting my teaching. Remember?
Yeah.
Ah. Um, So, in terms of classroom environment, I would say, you think from the kid end. That's what I would say. That's so like, and that does incorporate executive function. Like, how long is my attention span if I'm a seventh grader? Or what interests me if I'm a seventh grader? Who can I sit by? Who can't I? How should my body be oriented so that I'm most set up for success? Um, where can the things be in the classroom so that when I walk to get what I need, I don't have to bop kids on the head? You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So just kind of thinking from the kid and really like trying to adapt the environment, kind of that like antecedent place in terms of like if you think of behavior analysis,
Mhm.
um, setting them up for success rather than waiting until they fail and then getting mad at them. So yeah, I would say steering from the kid end. And then that also means the post end. So if they didn't do well, kind of thinking back to what were the patterns of struggle that I saw, and then also trying it from a kid like account,
Mhm.
logging in and being like, can I figure this out based on what I have? Or test running it with somebody in my household that maybe is not a child that can
Yeah.
feel like, "Hey, can you figure this out?" Just so that I've kind of explored the avenues of kind of like beta testing before I actually run it by kids. It's huge. It helps so, so, so much.
Yeah, and I've seen it before, and I think it's super helpful also as like the teacher in the classroom, because it's good to step out of your perspective and see it from their perspective. It really helps connect and understand their struggles too. So
Yeah.
I really like how you do that. Um, the next question is, how do you incorporate social emotional learning in your lessons?
Ooh. Um, it kind of depends on what the lesson's asking of kids. If it's like more of the getting information, then that would be more of the self-management.
Mhm.
How do you pay attention? How do you monitor your attention? How do you stay the right level of alert, not too like slow, not too fast, kind of like self-regulated? How do you self-advocate when you don't understand something? That kind of thing. If it's um, collaboration, then that's a different set of social emotional skills. That's, watching your tone, using the right words, how to handle disagreement, what does collaboration look like and sound like, um, how, and then it kind of gets back to like the making the comfortable space where it's okay to fail, it's okay to say goofy things sometimes, like we're all learning and growing together, and that leaves space for everybody to participate. And then we also do social things. So sometimes we just take a few minutes to talk, or we'll play a game outside, or um, I do picnic lunches with the kids where they have a pass and they're invited to come eat on the grass in front of. I have to eat outside anyway. Might as well have them there. And I've gotten so much payback from that because it's a nice break and I get to learn about them. And then they've got the connection with me that they're going to stand up for our class and be sort of like mini teachers and
Oh.
moderators and things like
Mhm.
that, where they're like, no, we're good with her. We're going to be respectful. And it just sort of flows better because we've had that chance to bond. And plus, when I know where they're coming from, then I can help them address some of their worries and stuff outside of class time, which helps address the social emotional stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the answer. The next one is, what are your methods you use to check for understanding as you're teaching? That's a funny question, sorry. So what methods do you do, or what do you do to find out if the student's actually learning the material?
We do a lot of turn and talk when we can. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit harder, and I haven't cracked this um code yet because when I can only see eyes, there's
Yeah.
a lot of confused faces that I'm missing, and
Mhm.
they are missing mine too. So I used to be able to tell a lot from faces, like if they're and now I can't see as much. So I've lost a lot of my formative feedback just in terms of they don't hide their confusion very well, but their masks are.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of like, show me with your thumb how you're feeling, show me like one, I got it, two, I'm working on it, three, I need help, like we'll do a lot of that. And then I'll kind of um either if I have like a 1 and a 4 next to each other, I'll partner them up so they can help each other, or I'll swing by and say, "Hey, I noticed that you were a thumbs down. What parts do you understand? Where do you think you need help?" That kind of thing. Um, we have in the past had them like write their answers on their iPads and show us. So, but that's effective. It depends on how small the answer is, like if it's super
Right.
small, I can't see it. Um, we've had a lot of too, like look at your partner, make sure your partner's on the right spot, that kind of thing. Because it's tricky to be limited in how much we can move around right now with COVID. And our classrooms are so super crammed. So um, that's tricky, but we can also do formative um, feedback in terms of like Google questions, and they can respond online, and then we can check. It's just that's a little bit more of a delay because then it takes me looking at it that evening, coming back in 2 days because of the block schedule, and then addressing it. So I prefer to do the quicker feedback so that I can actually use it to change what I'm doing in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But then we do have the layers of like, Google questions, or right now, the week before we went on fall break, they did paragraphs, and now I'm looking for trends in terms of what does everybody need, what does a small group need, and what do the individuals need. Do you see I did the pyramid?
Yeah. Thank you. The next one is a little fun question that me and my partner had put in. What is your favorite part of teaching?
Ooh. Just hanging out with the coolest kids on the planet.
Oh.
Really, truly. I like our kids. I
Mhm.
love our kids. They are some of the best humans I've ever met. And um yeah, it's really fun to watch them grow and be in like this goofy, terrible, wonderful middle school space. Um, it's just it's fun to feel like I've got this school family of kids, and you and then like any family, there are people that like your grumpy uncle that you don't want to spend time with. They're at school too. But the kids are just the best part of teaching for sure.
Oh, I agree too. So the next question is, so in our class, we're learning about how to connect what we're teaching to the kids to the real life um, context. So the next question says, what are some ways you create and connect the subject matter to real life context?
Um, we're actually doing humanities, so our English content is world cultures content, which is really cool because then there's like that undercurrent of political patterns and things that we can grab onto from the news, or um, we did a parallel comparison to what Aztec school days were like compared to what ours are like. And the kids definitely prefer ours. Big surprise. There were like
Mhm.
very harsh punishments in Aztec days. Um, but I think that's been fun telling it like a story where it's got like a hero villain, that kind of thing. Kids love, like our brains learn in stories. Um, and then honestly, some things just won't be that interesting to them and they need to know them. And that's
Yeah,
okay too. So we're upfront about like this this is going to seem a little bit dry, and here's why you need to know it. And so then we can kind of, instead of putting like an analogy to it, like this is like this in your life, we can just say, hey, you need this set of skills because people judge you by your writing, and if you don't know where a period goes, you're going to miss opportunities or things like that. So um some of the like more dry, boring things, they still need to know. And I don't want to waste a whole lesson like grasping at connections.
right.
Instead, I just need to be straight up like, we're going to find cool content in which to practice the skill, but the initial lesson, pay attention because this is your future. But I can't make a parallel to like current music with a period lesson. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Yeah, but I think it's important how you like used, oh, it might be boring to learn about punctuation, but think about in the future when you have to actually do it, people will judge you, unfortunately. And I feel like that will also connect like real life situations to the material. Sorry, there's an airplane.
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. And that's, I mean, that's true of real life. Like, I think we've done kids a little bit of a disservice swinging too far into the like hook to their real life, find the parallels, because sometimes we're working so hard to make it interesting that we've lost the depth and the actual like meat of the lesson. And so just being straight up and saying, like, you need this, and we'll practice it in a cool context that will get you, but also punctuation sometimes boring.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a self-regulation strategy opportunity to say like, hey, how do you handle boring things? What do
Oh,
you
that's
do
true.
when your mind starts to wander? So
Yeah. Wow.
I
How
hope that's the right answer for your
mm,
class.
no, no, no. Yeah, I no, I love your responses so far. They're amazing. They're perfect to me. Sorry, my kitten's using the litter box.
Real life. I can still hear you.
Okay. So what do you think teachers should incorporate to their classrooms to create a caring community within their classroom?
Ooh. I would say a deep understanding of the kids. Um, I used to be more forthright with here's all about me and stuff, but like that'll come out eventually. They'll get the kind of like the brand of Kessie. I don't need to like make a formal presentation. Instead, I want to invite them to share more of themselves and celebrate when they take a risk, celebrate when they ask for help or help another, or, basically kind of change our cognitive bias to be looking for what they're doing right and then make big publicity out of that, because that not only praises the kid, but then also opens everybody else to like, ooh, if I do that, I get good attention. Rather than like, oh, I'm not doing that, I'm gonna get yelled at. It just kind of changes the tone, um, which then modifies behavior in a way that's like more passive for me. So I get to be positive and uplifting rather than, like squishing naughty behaviors, which of course you have to do a little bit, but it's just not as common in our classroom when you have that sort of cognitive bias to look for the positive.
Right. Let's see the next one. What reflection strategies have worked for you when reflecting on what teaching practices have supported student learning? So again, it kind of goes back to a previous question, but kind of want to know like how do you take the time to see like, maybe I should probably switch it up a little bit here. Maybe I should just like toss that lesson out of the window because it's not working. Like what kind of how do you go about that?
Um, it's a little bit of visualization on the back end. So what do I see kids doing? Where do I see them falling? Where do I see them thriving? That kind of thing. And then it's real world testing it out. And if it's
Mhm.
bad enough, you switch it in the middle. And if it's good enough, but it needs some tweaks, then you change it in between classes if you can repeat lessons. So I think the beauty of teaching co-teaching right now is I get to repeat 3 lessons. And so by the third time I've done it, I'm a lot better because I take time at the end to think about it, to talk to my partner teacher, to make little adjustments in the breaks that we have. Um, and that's helpful. So if it's something like social comm that I taught last year where I only get one and done, I
Yeah.
have to learn from the mistakes and then apply it differently to a new lesson or possibly reteach, like I've done that a couple times where I'm like, guys, here's where I think I made a mistake or an assumption, and I'll own it. I'll tell the kids, like, oops, I don't think I did this good job on this. We're gonna go back and redo it. Because that's part of developing a safe space to make mistakes is owning mine too.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I know that I'm trying to find the best ones here. I really
You're okay.
pick your brain. Um, oh, here's one. How has collaborating with colleagues and other professionals help support you and student learning? Since you just mentioned your code teacher.
Yeah. Um, Definitely, I love stealing ideas. I love watching masterful teachers in action. I wish that we got to do that more often. I
Mhm.
think teaching can be so lonely and you get in your own head and you're just like, I've been lucky enough to work with you and partner teachers and stuff. So I'm not alone a lot, but um, I know that even when you do work with other people, you're still kind of like extra hard on yourself and stuff. So getting out of your own head and talking things through is super helpful. Like I said, stealing ideas from really great teachers. Because I teach special ed, somehow I'm magically credentialed to teach any content, which is an issue at the state level. And if your professors are listening, let's tackle it. But that also put me in a situation where, like, I was teaching NGSS standards for eighth grade that maybe I'm not as like practiced with. And so having my colleagues for content was really supportive. And then I can in turn be their person for access. So I can be like the strategy fairy and they can give me the content. And that's like it's been a good exchange since I've been at the middle school level.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like how you said the exchange. That's how I feel like collaborating would be. And I know that I talked to you about certain strategies I use with the kids during the classroom time. And I love how you're really open. You're like, well, maybe next time try this, or no, it's working perfectly. You're doing fine. Don't worry about it. Because you're right. I feel like I'm gonna get like really into my head and just be
Huh?
my worst critic. So that's really it's really nice to hear. Let's see here, the next one. Oh, what so this I made this question up because I'm a little, I shouldn't say scared, but nervous about working with families. I know we work with students, but I know that eventually I am gonna have to like talk and, you know, communicate with the parents and or caregivers. So what challenges and support have you experienced when working with families?
um Last year, we had a student, I won't say his name on here, but we had a student in our English X class whose mom, I was texting everybody before school so that they had my number and so that they knew like I was their person,
Mhm.
especially like the kids that I case managed. And his mom said, no offense. And like already I'm like,
Mhm.
fighting words are coming. And she's like, no offense, but I hate teachers. I've never liked a teacher. I don't think you're going to be any different. And I was like, game on. And so that's been a challenge. Like parents bring their baggage. I mean, everybody brings their baggage. And so if their kids have struggled behaviorally or academically, or, teachers are human, they say awful things sometimes. And so I become the face of this like issue that they don't want to work with or they're angry at or it's just failed them. And so I have a lot of like climbing up a sand hill to do before I get any traction with them, which is fine, but I've got to keep that in the front of my brain so that I don't feel like it's personal because it can feel
Right.
personal. Like, I don't like you is a mean thing to say. And so, and by the way, she like still texts me even though he's not our kid anymore. So it's a nice thing now. Like I win, ta-da! But the kid wins too.
Yeah.
But it took a little bit of her being very, very grumpy with me and me proving that I had her back. Um, but that comes from like honesty um of good communication, of a lot of communication, sometimes with like the hand-holdy parents where you're like, I told you 3 times already, but you treat them just like kids. Like, oh, good question. Here it is.
Yeah.
If you check your email, it's in there 4 times. But you don't say that, you just like,
No.
okay, well, because imagine, I mean, like, raising kids is hard, raising teenagers is extra hard. you're surviving a pandemic, like there's just layers. So just having some compassion for where they are, and not having attitude when you respond back goes so, so, so far. And then having lots of access points. So giving your email every time you talk to parents, giving your Google Voice number every time you communicate. Um, One thing I'm working on is getting things into the gradebook online before they're actually due, because a lot of the times the kids go home, they're like, I don't have homework. And we only ever close the feedback loop when it's late and it's on Jupiter or on like the online grading system. And the parents are like, this is missing. And it's because I just put it in, but
Mhm.
maybe I assigned it 3 weeks ago. And had I put it in just like as a blank, like we're working on it, the parents would have had a discussion point with their kids and they wouldn't now be playing catch up. Because once you're in catch up mode, you're on double duty of doing the old work and the new work.
Right.
It's just it hurts the parent kid dynamic. It hurts the kids like tenacity and motivation. It's just not a good spot to be in.
Mhm.
And we do that by not communicating earlier. So I'm working on that part. I'm not great at it yet, but I'm trying.
No, yeah, but I really like how you said that, um, don't take it personally, even if they come off, already kind of mean, because it's not about you. You said they bring baggage and stuff, and it's our job to understand that it's not personal. We're there for the
Hmm.
student, and we have to build or find a way to build a connection between family and school, because I feel like both of them together would make such a great support team. And like you
Hmm.
said, yeah, making sure that stuff are put in the grade book and everything like that, and communicating with the parent, I think would be like the best support for students. So I see you do it all the time. I'm always like in awe. I'm like, how do you make it look so easy? But you
It's
just told me
not.
right now it's not. um, okay, so the last question I have here. Um, so the last question I'm going to ask you, because I had 20, but I wanted to pick only the 15 that I wanted to really ask. With the challenges of COVID, how has this pandemic impacted your need to adapt instructional plans to meet the learning needs of students? And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to kind of just like wrap it up altogether.
Well, it's gonna be an unexpected answer. Sorry. That's very on brand, isn't it? Um, you know what? I think it leveled the playing field in my direction because as a special ed teacher, I've always had kids with screwy social emotional needs. I've always had dysregulated kids. I've always had kids that are like 2, 3 years behind, but then competent in one area, but then totally basic in another. Like that's been my world. So to me, the shock of it hasn't been as strong. I think the good part of it is it's really illuminated the need for us to be aware of what executive function is,
Hmm.
how to teach it, how to embed it, all that kind of stuff that I've been like beating that drum for 10 years. And now people are like, oh, maybe you have some good ideas, which again, it's like that like 4 times I've emailed. I'm not going to be like, I told you. I'm going to be like, hey, can we share some good ideas? you know um because I think if we come to school with that like detective perspective and we're looking for opportunities to lift up rather than like lament where they are, or like, oh, you're terrible at paying attention now and blah 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 blah, like you can get stuck in that track, or you can take the special ed approach of like, what would give you the most bang for your buck, that if you could do this you could make it through. And that's kind of what I've really stuck with and seen a lot of growth from kids with,
Hmm.
is just thinking backwards to, okay, if this is the end product, like kind of like the leaves on the tree, what are the roots and like the branches that you need to get further up to where we want you to be? Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, it does.
Okay.
And now you mention it, it's actually really true. I remember being on what's it called? It's like your classrooms like via Zoom during the pandemic, and I remember how a lot of the things you were doing were things that you had already done in the classroom before. And I was just like, oh wow, Sarah's like really prepared. But no, you already did it. So I think the way that you set everything up was like very fluid, and it was just you doing you. And you made it look again very easy. Um, but I have another question. What about like in the classroom setting, like when you're in the classroom with the kids? Do is it a little different on how to teach the material since you can't really read the faces anymore, or
Definitely, and I'm still working to figure that one out.
yeah.
So it's a lot of instead of me reading them, asking them directly how they are, but then again, their self-awareness is a little bit shaky.
Mhm.
So I've had to backwards say, like, okay, if your brain feels foggy, and kind of give them descriptions to match rather than just like, got it, not got it,
You're
because
right.
who knows what that means. So,
Yeah.
like, I have 0 questions. I have an idea of what I'm doing. I've got a few questions. I could probably do this if I had some help, and kind of like really, really stepping out what it could look like, so that they're more self-aware before they even ask for help. And then also getting them started
Mhm.
and then showing a couple of starts, like on like, can I show the class your work so that other kids can copy their good ideas has been really helpful. So like, here's how I started my first sentence, and then other kids can kind of get unstuck
Mhm.
because generally the hardest part is getting started. So if you can give them a couple minutes, especially like with math, give them a couple minutes and then show a couple like beginning problems, then they're like, "Oh, okay." And somehow if it comes from kids, it's like way more poignant than if it comes from me, which is fine. That's,
Mhm.
whatever. But that's been helpful. But you're right. It's been really hard. So there's a lot of like teach a little bit, have them practice, and me just cruise. I mean, I walk around a lot anyway to
Yeah.
like check in and stuff, but it's a lot of like not searching for compliance, but searching for demonstration of understanding, because it's one thing to just like, oh, I'm going to copy down what the teacher said. Like, yeah, that's cool, but I want to see that you get it. And so if your notes don't match mine, but it actually is like demonstrative of comprehension, I don't care. Like, right on. So,
Yeah.
um, but they can't read me. And so they kind of are a little bit tense when I come by because they're thinking I'm looking for compliance. So I have to be mindful to not only look, but like tell them specific feedback of, like awesome job getting started, or look, you wrote down one word. Can you do two
Mhm.
more? I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on where they are, but yeah, it's very yo-yo, up and down, all around. Since I don't have this feedback, I have to look at what
Right.
they're doing.
Yeah, it's funny because I also have used a lot of like I think my eyebrows have been my, like, oh wow. I started learning
Yeah.
how to use my eyebrows more to help, emphasize I'm trying to say to them, like, you're doing great. But
Yeah.
I want to also point out that you said that you check for understanding and not compliance, and that's so funny because in our class we're learning about that, how we need to see if they're understanding it, because understanding it is way different than just like you know memorizing it, because memorizing is
Mhm.
different than actually explaining it and being able to like use it in different ways and whatnot. And you also talked about like, well, I see it more like a community aspect, like the teacher helps, and if that doesn't work, then you collaborate with your peers because they, like you said, they see it in different ways and they understand it, when it's coming from another student. And I think it was like really awesome that hit those 2 points. Actually, you hit a lot of points throughout the questions, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I knew Sarah was amazing.
Ah,
Yeah. But well, those are my questions. I just really want to thank you for taking the time to sit here with me and let me pick at your brain.
of
So,
course, I'm always
so
here.
much. Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and
welcome.
I'm gonna end the recording really quick.